What up, folks? What it do? Welcome to another episode of the Best Advice Ever podcast. Yeah, with your boy, Mike Goodwin, the bow-tie comedian. Now, this is week number 2, and we're back with our special guest, Mrs. Gabrielle Goodwin.
Hello, everyone. Yay.
Yay, Gabrielle. You don't know who Gabrielle is. This is my daughter. Yes, my firstborn. And we are giving the best advice ever related to the college admissions process. So if this is your first time tuning in, go back to the episode from last week, because that's where we talked about kind of preparing. Like, when do you take the college visits? How do you select teachers, the right teacher recommendations? What are you going to write about on your essay? How are you going to even identify the schools that you ultimately will apply to? That's what we talked about first episode. This episode is now, you got the schools. We got the schools. We got the monies. We got the credit card number. We got the teacher recommendations. We got the things. So now we're going to talk about the application. Like, when'd you get it in? How much time? Some people waited to the last minute to get theirs in. Some people. Some people. Very, very studious, academic, top of the class, very on top of things. But wait to the wee last moment. Some people did that. So maybe, hopefully your students don't do that type of thing. But students I know, that's how they got down. So the application process, then also scholarships, because I know scholarships is a big conversation. And what most folks don't know, you probably need to be doing that in tandem with the application. This needs to be happening concurrently as you're doing the application. You need to also be identifying these college scholarship opportunities. And we'll talk about those things and others. So let's get started.
Hi, everyone, again. I don't know.
So we're talking about, once you identified your 10 schools,
Okay.
How did you come up with the 10?
So finding out those 10 schools, I knew where I was going to apply to. And now it's just I completed I made another page to my spreadsheet and basically put those 10 schools, and then what is their application due date, their fee, what you probably want to have 2 majors that you want to apply to, because they'll give you like an opportunity to put your first choice, but then they'll also give you an opportunity to put your second choice or third choice in, even if you because you may not get into the first choice that you apply to. So I put the first choice that most directly correlated to my major or what I wanted to study, and then I also had a second choice, and look through those major lists, those directories for each of those schools, and see which ones you really want to apply to, and then you can have that. Trying to think of what else I had on there, but it was really just like, and then also I had a separate document that I mentioned last episode where I had all my essays. So what I did with that is I went through like the Common App, and I went through all the schools that I planned on applying to, and then I copied and pasted those supplemental questions into a whole Google Doc, and then separated them or organized them by deadline. So the first one was the one and that also came with scholarships too, because a lot of scholarships that you apply to, whether it be directly in a college or it be an outside scholarship, also have other supplemental essays that you need to write. So you can basically just go chronological through all the schools or the scholarships that you want to apply to, and then go through and answer those questions as they come. So that's basically how I started, putting all the dates into a calendar, making sure my parents knew the dates too. Yeah, I think that's really like the most preliminary things and just really just getting started. Like I think that's one of the main things that people kind of struggle with is like, okay, how do I go forth and do it? But as soon as you type that first essay, it'll get pretty routine from there.
Yeah, some of you may not have applied to college since you went to college. So you've heard us say Common App a few times. So the Common Application basically is a mechanism where you can apply to multiple colleges by filling out this one application. So the Common Application, and then there's something else, the
There's like the
Universal.
coalition app,
Yeah, they're
and then
different.
QuestBridge is also an
They're
option.
different places where back in the day, when we applied, we had to get the application for that one school and fill it out. So there are some places that you just fill out their application. That still exists.
Yeah.
All of this is online though. There's no paper applications at all. So you have to remember your usernames and passwords. So what would you do?
I put that application document had my essays, but it also had my usernames and passwords for different platforms. It had like all the information that they asked, like miscellaneous things, like what's your school's phone number, what's your
School
teachers,
code.
school codes, teachers' email addresses, counselors' email addresses, what's your social security, like things like that. You may want to put that in like your phone, maybe, but not in a Google Doc. But like different things, like your school's address and things like that too, because they will ask you continuously, and sometimes you probably don't have those things off the top of your head. So a lot of that was basically just my whole information document, like what were the things that I needed to know for my application and then also my essays.
And so you got a variety of applications. You have the individual school that may have an application. In most cases, those are public schools. Most public schools will have their own individual application. Now there are some that are on the Common App, but for the majority of the public schools, you have to fill out their individual application. The Common App traditionally is private schools. They are small liberal arts private schools, places that will require you to have a CSI profile. Like there's some additional
CSS.
information. CSS, yeah, whatever. CSI is a television
Yeah, I was
show.
about to say.
CSS profile. That's money. They want to know your monies. But for the most part, private schools are on the Common Application. And then you will have examples like a public school that has an honors college. So now you have to fill out the traditional application, but then the honors college application is an additional application that is connected to the regular application. So South Carolina, where we live, the South Carolina application, you can log, let's say these applications are available August 15th. I don't know the date, but they make their applications available like August 15th. But the Honors College application is not available till later. So now, let's say you want to go to South Carolina. You got to fill out the regular application. You got to apply to the university and you have to apply to the Honors College. So those are two separate things. They're connected, but they're separate. You can't say, "Oh, I applied to the Honors College," and that restricts me from applying to the regular. Like you can wait till the Honors College application is available and do it all at one time. Typically, that application is not more available to like October 15th, a few months later, because there's more pieces. There's a portfolio. There's another additional essay. There are questions that are intended on figuring out what type of student you are and how interested you are in academia and being a scholar and those types of things. So know that if you're applying to a school that has an honors college, by virtue of just applying to the college doesn't automatically put you in honors. There are some places that when you apply to the school, they will review you for the honors college. But if there's a school like a big state university they will have an additional application for the honors college. Let me also talk about the honors college. I think an honors college is the secret weapon for a big school, right? Especially if you're academically talented. And this is why I say this. Most times, if you are interested in a big school, you're interested in the academics as it relates to the major. You're not thinking about university, your English 101 class. You're not thinking about, oh, I'm going to be in there with 150 people. Like you're thinking about, oh, I want to go and major in engineering, which engineering at a public school is a small community of folks. So there may be 20 people in your class in your engineering major versus in your standard freshman university curriculum, right? But the beauty of an honors college for students that are very strong academically, Gabrielle would probably be one of these people. You want a big college experience, but a small college academic experience. So you want to be able to go to games. You want to have social life. You want to have sororities, fraternities. That's all available at a big place because there are more people, more students. But then you want to be in a small academic environment. You want to have small class sizes. You want to have access to your teachers, your professors, not your TAs and teachers assistant. Well, that T is a teacher assistant or a grad student. You want to be able to talk to your professor, do research with your professor, all the things that students will do at a smaller liberal arts college. If you ever go on any college visit, this is what I did this for 8 years. Basically, small colleges are going to tell you you're not a number. You get to meet with your professor. Sometimes the professor has you over for dinner. All these things about how small and intimate. You'll get you'll get internship opportunities. You'll be able to do research with your professor. Then you go to the big school and they tell you, oh my goodness, you'll get into law school. You'll be able to go to the big games and you'll be able to have access to these research labs and facilities. And you'll be able to, ESPN Game Day will be on campus and you'll get to climb the rock climbing wall in the wellness center, and you will be able to bowl in the bowling alley, and you'll be able to have popcorn and parties at the movie theater. Like those not you don't have those things at small schools. There's no bowling alley at a university of 3,000 to 5,000 students, right? So the honors college is the best of both worlds. It's the best where you can have this small community of scholars, but you can also bowl in the bowling alley and get Chick-fil-A and do all the things that you do at a big school. So if you're looking at a place, or if you're a type of student that, hey man, I want a rigorous academic experience, don't count out your state schools because many of the state schools have very competitive honors colleges, and that's just just me giving you some game.
Yeah, I think honors college was definitely a big thing, especially looking at like places like USC or North Carolina A&T. Uh, Applying to those was kind of I knew for USC, like for South Carolina, I only would want to go if I got into the honors college just because of that like experience. Like I would get obviously the big hoorah of a big state school, but I would also have a lot of smaller perks with being in a smaller community. And on top of that, I was able to be, or had the opportunity to be in the top scholars program, which was like the elite of the elite, with the honors college and the highest scholarships too. So you really have to dig and look for those opportunities. I guess with going like applying so many times, I think looking back, like out of the 10 schools that I applied to, I probably had to do a separate application for something else for 7 of them. So whether that was the honors college, whether that was their scholarships, um, yeah, I had to apply. Like for USC, there was a different. honors college application. Tulane had a scholarship application. Vanderbilt had a scholarship application. A&T had an honors college application. I applied for the Robertson. Like Moorhead came for UNC. Jefferson is the only. It's a whole other thing by itself for UVA. So there's a lot of things that you have to look out for and do that research as well. I know one of the tabs that I had for my spreadsheet when researching was what were the scholarship opportunities and how could I like access them. Like what did I have to do? Is it a whole nother application website? Do I just have to go into my portal and it'll be right there for me? So really look into that, especially if you're wanting to apply to those scholarships, which you should. You should always put your self in those best positions to get the most out of whatever school that you're applying to. So definitely look out for those, as well as kind of outside scholarships too, which is a big thing. There's always those big outside scholarships like the Coca-Cola one or the Gates. I'm trying to think of what else. But there's obviously the big name ones that you can look at, and those applications start before like college applications start. Like I did my Coca Cola one in like September, um, and the one that like with schools like Moorhead came, for example, for UNC, that was due in August. So um, stay on top of those things because as I said it go by really fast. Like that summer is super important for you to make sure that you're on top of things, and even though don't feel too rushed at times, because I know that even if you look and see all these deadlines and you're on top of things, like sometimes you will have to work a bit overtime to make sure that you get all of those things in before the deadline. But yeah, so that was like that college part on the new spreadsheet, on the application spreadsheet, but then it was also scholarships. When are they due? What do they need? Do they need separate recommendations? Can I use the same recommendations that I have, or do I have to use somebody else? So thinking about all of those things and reaching out to people who you knew, like I said in the past episode, like reaching out to people who you know will put in a good word for you. For me, obviously, I talk about spreadsheets a lot. Like I'm a systematic person. Like I just like writing things down. I have to get things down in a kind of nice and precise way, I guess. But it's definitely a different process for different people. So just do whatever is most comfortable for you in terms of writing down that information and getting things done.
So communication, how would you advise parents to communicate? Because sometimes you don't see the action and you'll say something like, "Hey, have you applied to school?" And like, "Yeah, I got it." Like, how? What's the best way to jointly go through this process with your parents?
I think the first thing is just like obviously knowing what schools like you all need to be in agreement with what schools you're applying to, and then you'll also go into the fact, are you doing early decision or are these early action or are these regular decision? So I think just putting that in the like having that set. I applied for I applied 6 colleges early action and 4 regular decision. So knowing that, then my parents were able to be like, okay, so when is the looking? I guess looking in like a week perspective or a 2 week perspective, when are these specific colleges due? Like, so I had USC first. So they were like, okay, is USC done? Then we can go on to the next thing. What's the next thing? Asking your child, what's the next college that they have to apply to? What's the next scholarship that they have? What's the next deadline? And then having that in the back of your head and making sure that they come to you before that and are asking you about their essays and things like that. I know for me, I asked for my parents to look over my essays and my application in general. I know there's some students who don't let their parents in at all.
That's crazy.
That's actually insane.
Crazy work.
I would say to let your parents in on the things that you're talking about, and because they can find things that you may not have seen just by writing it out. They can see grammatical errors. They can tell you if things are, or if your essay is flowing the way that it should, if you're missing something. I know for like my mom, I really kind of leaned on her for the grammatical things, does this fit structure wise? And then in terms of my dad, I was like, are there things that I'm missing? Is there something I should specifically talk about in terms of this essay? Because you also want to use your supplementals as a way to continue to expand on your application. Like, as I mentioned in the past episode, I had an entire like bulleted list of stories that I have, of things that I've achieved, things that I've done that I did not necessarily hit on in my extracurricular section, in my awards section, in my essay, what my teachers might write about or my counselor might write about. And you may not know that because of FERPA, but you can probably get a gauge of, because I asked like my math teacher, so I probably couldn't talk about Math Honor Society because she probably talked, and she did talk about it in my application. So I literally just had a whole bunch of stories, a whole bunch of things that I could use, and then I put those into my essays. And if there was something that fit, I could be able to really do that. And also, you want to kind of have a few things that you want to talk about in your supplementals. Like, what is your, I think one thing that's really important is for you to have something that sticks out in terms of your application. I know for me, I'm a little kind of out of the box because I started a business at 7 years old. So that kind of puts me out, out of, a regular box. But you don't necessarily have to go back and start a business, or you don't have to start a business. I know people who have gotten a lot of success who did research at their local college, or they started a nonprofit, or they started a club in their school, and they were able to show ingenuity that way. So something that you started, that you created, I think that's something that really helps people stand apart in terms of the college admissions process, and then talk about it. Like, you're the only person that can really talk about this. If you started it from the ground up, if you're the founder, if you are the CEO, you are the only person that can really talk about this, and you may get the opportunity to talk about it in an interview, but you may not. So you want to make sure that you are saying as much as you can without repeating yourself constantly, without stat padding your essays. Because people don't want to read stuff that they've already read, and they don't want to read numbers. Like, they want to know more about you. So use the opportunity for stories to get, for, because a lot of college admissions counselors or people who are reading your applications, like, small stuff sticks out to them, and you may have an interview with them later or talk to them later, and it's like, oh, how's your brother, how's your family, because you talked about your brother in your essay, or tell me more about this. So kind of just putting different things in those supplementals, I think, would really help in terms of that. But staying on track, staying on top of it, helping your child know what to talk about. Obviously, you've helped raise them. You know what they've experienced. You know their passions. So help them know what to talk about. Help them stay on track and stay motivated, because it can definitely be a hard time in terms of trying to figure out how to balance school, but then also having to balance this college admissions process where there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of things that go into it. So be there as support. But yeah, definitely let your parents into the admissions process, because it's definitely something hard to deal with on your own.
Yeah, and I think two things that come to mind. You should lead the process, but your parents should help guide it, right? So you should be the one. I remember going to an admissions visit, and we told Gabrielle to go up to the front desk and say, "Hey, I'm here for the visit." When oftentimes it's the parent that is up there, and, "Oh, we're here with our child." Like, you're not going to college, so use the admissions process to now take some autonomy, take some of the initiative that you're now transitioning into adulthood, because you, the student, will be the person that will be on campus and be in these classes. So don't sit on the side and let your parents do everything, and don't let your parents be the one to say, "Hey, this is due." Like, you should be setting the pace, and it should be a collaboration. There should be a team effort in making this happen. Also, when Gabrielle was talking about your interview or your application and your essays, I think about the idea of what are you talking about that's a hook? Like, how do you hook your reader? I used to, again, I was a college counselor, and I would go to all of these college admissions counselors meetings and seminars. And I remember one year they were kind of talking about essays that stood out. And there was a student that wrote in his first line of his application was, "Yes, it's true, I'm a chick magnet," right? That was his first line. But he really wasn't. He was a kid that liked science. And he talked about his love of science. And then he just juxtaposed that with like, I guess I can see why I'm not attractive to women because I spent all this time in the lab, and it was that kind. It was kind of a quirky, funny, self-depreciating kind of thing. But yes, I'm a chick magnet, or yes, it's true. Like that grabs the reader's attention. Also, don't feel like you need to have opened a business or grew up in a single parent home or had this terrible adversity in your life that you got to talk. Like you could talk about your grandmother's love of knitting, like, and that you spent so much time learning about your grandmother as she knit this beautiful blanket that you now carry with you. And when you wear this blanket, you think about the resilience of your grandmother, and you think about how difficult it must have been for her to be a single parent. Like it's the story that communicates who you are, and it also communicates what you desire out of your future. So what is it that you want, and how does this university experience help you get there? I mean, when I was going through this with Gabrielle, I would suggest that she look at the slogan of the different schools, and schools would say different things like be motivated or whatever. Like they have stuff, like they have things that are on their website. You incorporate those things into your conversation. And yes, you can use multiple essays from different schools. Just make sure you get the right school name. Yes. And then that whatever you're communicating makes sense. You can't say, man, I just love, I can't wait to be spending time in the gym with the Cameron Crazies, and you send that to Tulane. Like that's wrong. Like don't do that. Right. But communicate what you already know about the school and what they already communicate to you, and what's important to them. Because schools are constantly telling you what's important to them. They are constantly saying that, hey, inquiry, curiosity, scientific research, like they are telling you on their website what they want from their student body and what type of student does well here. So don't again tell people what they want to hear. Tell them who you are. Like be transparent, not the most dark, deep secrets, but you want them, like Gabrielle has been saying, what's some things that you share with them that they wouldn't find anywhere on the application? They wouldn't have known that had you not shared that. So I think that's very important, that you present your most authentic self in these applications. And it may get monotonous, right? It may feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over and over again. But they don't know you. And it's a lot of yous that they're looking at. So you want to make sure that if they're going to evaluate your application, that they're evaluating your application and not a version of the application that you think that they want to hear. They don't want to hear about your mission trip just because you took it and you worked with some kid and it, oh my God, it showed me. No, like if it really didn't move you like that, don't write about that. I often talk about, instead of sharing when you hit the game winning shot, share when you fumbled the ball in a playoff game and you're lost. Like share a disappointment, because people resonate with disappointments and loss. Like everybody always wants to give their highlights. How about give some of your lowlights that will communicate, this is what I learned from this experience. Not just, oh, I fumbled the ball, we lost the game, and I felt so terrible. Like, what did you learn from that loss or from that obstacle or adversity? I think those are very important factors to communicate to the college.
Yeah. Um, I was thinking about, I forgot what I was thinking about. But I think for that, it's really important to just show like who you are. I think a main thing for me that I got tripped up a little bit was like using conjunctions like y'all and I've and things like that. To an extent, obviously you want to make sure that you're bringing your best grammar for it. So I didn't use any like conjunctions and things like that that I would probably usually say in like a regular interview. But I think it's important for you to talk about the things that you're really passionate about because passion shows through more than just accomplishment overall. Like and I think with that is showing how your passions have grown over the years. It's very key to show the evolution of you as a student versus you just coming as a senior. Like I saw in a lot of applications in my peers and college admissions people like said this actually it was like you don't have a lot of longevity in your application. Like you want to make sure that you have longevity in it. So if you're starting this club, you may want to start that your sophomore year and then help it grow. Or you may want to join a club like your freshman year and then grow through. Um, so in terms of that, like in terms of preparing what extracurriculars you want to do, like looking at that, I think starting your freshman sophomore year with most of your extracurriculars is the key because that really shows college admissions people that you're really passionate about it. You started it at a, I mean, I don't want to say young age, but you started it earlier in your high school career. You could start it at a young age. I mean, obviously, me with the business that was a key thing, but it was also I started volunteering in my youth ministry in the eighth grade. I started doing volunteer work in the eighth grade, and that grew into my senior year. I started DECA my freshman year, and then I started most of my other clubs like student council, dance, theater, all of those my sophomore year, and just was able to grow and get leadership positions as well. You don't need to have all the leadership positions in the world because you don't want to burn yourself out. But if you have like at least two or three leadership positions, maybe two, that you can really talk about in terms of school, that's something that can help you as well. I think it's really just giving people a teaser of things that you do. And then if you get the opportunity to do interviews and things like that, because scholarships, a lot of things with scholarships, that comes with a lot of interviews and things like that. I'm trying to like,
And they're going to
obviously,
interview you on
based
what
off the
you
things
what
that you
you
do.
already said.
Yeah.
They're not going to interview you about lacrosse if you've talked about being an entrepreneur in your application. They're going to want more information. Also, the thing I thought about too, as it relates to Gabrielle's experience. So she started this business when she was 7 and grew it. But a lot of adults, admissions folks would say her parents did that. I don't really know how much she was instrumental. You know, we see that often. A child will be the face of something, but it's really the parent that's behind the scenes doing that. And that's not the case in Gabrielle's, experience. So she had to communicate, yes, I did start this when I was 7, but these are all the things that I've done. And this is what I actively do. So that just not something that my mom does and I take credit for. So you need to, like I think she mentioned it earlier, who better to communicate what you do than you? And figuring out what are those things that you are very passionate about that you may even continue on in college. Those are things that build a bridge from your high school experience to your new experience that, hey man, this is what I'm bringing to the campus. I'm the same energy that I had in high school for dance or for lacrosse or for chess. I'm going to bring that to your campus and enhance the community by bringing my love of these particular areas and joining with the community that's already there.
Yeah, that's super important. In terms of like, because there's actually like a part on that. especially if you use Common App, that's like, I want to continue this in college or things like that in terms of your extracurriculars. And then with that, like what I did for a lot of my essays, my supplementals, was I looked up what are the clubs that are like the clubs that I do in high school, what are they called, and then I kind of like intertwine them in my essay examples. So going back to what he said about like actually researching, that's what yeah, going back into like researching the actual school, use what they give you in the actual questions. Like if they tell you this is our motto, what does this motto mean to you? You should specifically say those. Like I know for Vanderbilt is dare to grow, I think, or somebody was dare to grow. And so I really specifically said dare to grow, blah blah blah, blah. Like use that. Look up different clubs. Use the directories that they have on the website. The student life website, I think it may be under that, for examples of I've done this in high school. Now I want to continue to do this in at your university through this business club or through this dance company or through this research opportunity or group like that. Those are things that you can use in your supplementals and also in your interviews, which I'll talk about in a second, that stand out to you. And I think that's something that helped me stand out as well, was not just me as a person, but how I educated I was on the school that I was applying to, and using specific languages and things like that, like using the specific stadium I would be cheering at for a football game or for a basketball game. I talked about like different cultural centers, like using the different names of cultural centers at the universities that you would be applying to. There was a specific essay that I used for basically almost every single university. That's like the question of like why the school, or who are you and what will you contribute to the university. Like if you have that like 250 word 300 word essay that you can just basically copy and paste and be like, okay, this is me and this is what I'm going to bring to your university, and then throw in tidbits like cheering at or whatever. For me, obviously things like sports, so cheering at the specific games, being a part of business groups like this specific venture fund group or this specific business sorority, being a part of different cultural groups and things like that, like um, the Bishop C. Johnson group or Black Cultural Center. That's the one at Vandy. So using that and being able to grow off of it, especially if you get the opportunity to do interviews, is key in terms of like actually researching those universities.
Yeah, we'll talk about the research, or not research. We'll talk about the interviews, and then I think that's the next episode. We get more in depth on like how do you pitch, how do you prepare, what types of questions should you come in ready to answer, what types of questions should you ask the interviewees. Those are the things that we'll probably discuss in part three. Well, hopefully this has been of value to you. We're talking about the application process in completing the application and sending and submitting. Make sure you have the money in the account. Some places waive the fee, so there may be some alumni that you may know that they can have a code or they'll be able to waive a fee. So find out about those opportunities too, because it's not cheap. You know, even it's not the most expensive thing, but paying $75 for somebody to read your application seems like pretty significant amount of money, right? And if you're doing $75 10 times, y'all know what that is. So make sure that you're looking for opportunities that may waive the fee. If you apply on Common App, sometimes they'll say there's no fee associated. There's different things that you may attend an open house and they may give you a voucher. Make sure that you visit campuses. We would highly recommend that you do that. Go to the meetings when these particular reps come to your school or even in your area. I remember going to a school visit that they hosted it at like a local event place, a event venue, and it was in Columbia. So we went to that. So do all that you can do as it relates to showing interest, and that varies depending on the school. Some places showing interest is a feather in your cap that really weighs in in the admissions process. I really think about when we visited some of those smaller schools that in Gabrielle's sophomore year, like I think she would have had if she applied to some of those places, they would have waived application fees and they would have rolled out the red carpet. They were ready to give her application admissions on the visit. They were really ready to rock and roll. So and their schools, you get a sense of the school by visiting it. A lot of schools feel very distant by their website, their brochures, but when you get on campus and experience it, I can remember a school that we visited that I really liked, but when we went and visited, their customer service was not very great. They were very arrogant to some degree. It felt like, hey, thanks guys. I can remember two places that I think about that they did no extra type of thing for you in terms of parking and in terms of signage. But once you got to the meeting, they were like, "Oh, excited to see you" and all that. But before that, they had no type of hospitality. So I think Gabrielle was able to even make a decision about the places she wanted to go by visiting, by going to the particular campus and seeing the differences in the program. So there's a lot of value in going on the campus. Even if you've been, like Gabrielle went to a lot of University of South Carolina football and basketball games, but she's never been on a official campus visit. So then she had the opportunity to go to a summer thing and go to a visit later in the process. But I think those were valuable experiences to even give her some more perspective of, oh, I didn't know that they had this available to me. Oh, that was, man, that's great to know. And when you go and visit a place, it'll give you some insight on what to ask other places. So if you're like, hey, I went here and they had X, Y, and Z, do you have X, Y, and Z? And if not, what is your comparable um, offering that they have that you don't have? And I know parents are very, and then we'll probably talk about this in some of the later ones, safety and security and all of those things. But this was the episode we wanted to cover. Actually, how do you get all the information available to you to apply to the college? So next, we'll talk about once applications are in, they're in, and you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs, waiting for a response. What are the things that you can do to help move the process forward? Whether that's complete scholarship applications, prepare for potential interviews, start looking at the social media of the school and figuring out what the housing scenario will be, figuring out the academic requirements. Are they on a quarter system? Are they on a semester? All these types of things that are going to be very important in the process. Anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
Um, I don't, I don't think so. I don't. I guess. Well, I guess just do be proactive with the dates. I know for me, I did wait a lot for a lot of these schools, but the thing is, I opened it like I literally opened Comment App like the August 1st. I think for me, sometimes I am very proactive to the point where I'm just like, I need to now wait because I open the email as soon as I get it, but then I don't do the things until like the last because I don't know. That's just me though. So know who you are as a kind of somebody who does task and how you complete task. If you need to get things done a week before, do that. And I would say do things probably a week or two before or as soon as possible. But yeah, don't wait. I just got really lucky. Don't stress your parents out and be working on the application and like 10 at night and it's due at 11:59. But I mean, those are just moments that build character and they help you grow as an individual, and they bring appreciation to all the things that you're doing in the college admissions process. But I would say don't wait, for your sanity and for your parents' sanity as well.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point because this is probably the first time outside of maybe sports or being in a play or a dance recital where school is still happening. Like you're still in your classes, still taking your tests, still doing your things, and you have this other requirement that's happening. It's probably the first time for a high school student that the magnitude of how much stuff is due is kind of jarring because you still are in the midst of taking probably a very rigorous course load. But that's how college is because you're going to have 5 different classes where every individual professor thinks this class is the only class you're taking. So you got 5 classes, and I'm not thinking about what else you have due because you have this due, and this is the rubric or this is the syllabus. So you follow the dates. Conduct yourself accordingly. So it begins to prepare you for that next step in life where that's how life works. You're going to be living regular life and you got projects due and you got family members that want to visit that weekend. Like you're going to have to figure out how to manage time and make priorities and get things done when you can get them done. So it's a good exercise for the next phase of your life. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. Again, this is the Best Advice Ever podcast, and we're talking about college admissions. In this particular process or this particular episode, we talked about the application, how to get it done, how to knock it out, how to have your ducks in a row for the application process. And like I said, the next the next one we'll talk about after you submitted, what are the things that are important. And then the last episode will be how do you prepare for college? Like, what are the steps? What are the things that you need to be thinking about? How can you put your best foot forward transitioning into the world of higher education? Well, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Another round of applause for young Gabrielle for joining me on the podcast. You have been listening to the Best Advice Ever podcast. We'll be back next week. Same bat channel, same bat time. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate it. So share this, man. Let folks know that, man, this guy is very humorous. I don't know if we've been very funny on the podcast. We think we've been more informative than humorous, but let folks know. And again, I'm at all the places on social media at Bowtie Comedy or Comedian Mike Goodwin. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Peace. Bye.